The day my son canceled my credit cards, he believed he had finally taken control of my life. What he didn't understand was that the cards were never the source of my power. They were only a small part of a financial system I had spent 40 years building. By the time he learned who truly controlled the money, the decisions he had made could no longer be undone. My name is Robert, and I am 68 years old. For most of my life, I worked quietly, saved carefully, and avoided showing people how much I had. I owned a successful construction company, invested in property, and built a comfortable retirement. My wife Helen and I raised our only son, Daniel, with the belief that family should always come first. When Daniel got married to a woman named Vanessa, I welcomed her into our family. At first, she seemed kind and respectful. She visited us, often brought gifts during holidays, and always asked about my health. But after Helen passed away, things slowly changed. I was grieving, living alone, and trying to adjust to a quiet house that once felt full of life. Daniel began visiting more frequently. At first, I appreciated it. He brought groceries, helped with repairs, and offered to manage some of my bills. Yet he said one evening, "You shouldn't have to worry about paperwork anymore. You've worked your whole life. Let me help you." I trusted him. He was my son. I added him as an authorized user on one of my credit cards. I gave him access to a small checking account so he could pay household expenses when I needed help. I even allowed him to speak with my accountant about routine payments. That was the beginning of my mistake. Within a few months, Daniel and Vanessa began treating my money as if it belonged to them. Expensive restaurant charges appeared on the credit card. There were purchases from furniture stores, luxury clothing shops, and even a weekend trip to Las Vegas. When I asked Daniel about the charges, he laughed. "Dad, relax. We're family, I'll pay some of it back." But he never did. One afternoon, I discovered that my card had reached its limit. I called the bank and asked for a statement. The total amount was much higher than I expected. I confronted Daniel that evening. "You need to stop using my card," I told him. His expression changed immediately. "After everything I do for you, you're worried about a few purchases." "It isn't about a few purchases," I replied. "You're spending money without asking." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Maybe it's time someone else handled your finances," she said. "You're getting older, Robert. You could make mistakes." I stared at her. "I may be older," I said, "but I know exactly where my money is." Daniel slammed his hand against the kitchen table. "You don't trust us. I trust you enough to tell you the truth," I answered, but trust doesn't mean unlimited access. For several days, Daniel refused to answer my calls. Then, without warning, my credit card stopped working. I was at the grocery store when it happened. I placed a few items on the counter and handed the cashier my card. She tried it twice. "I'm sorry, sir." She said, "This card has been declined." I checked my phone and saw a notification from the bank. My card had been canceled. I called customer service immediately. Why was my account closed? I asked. The representative explained that an authorized user had contacted the bank and reported that I was no longer capable of managing my financial accounts. I was shocked. Who made that report? The representative couldn't give me the full details, but I already knew Daniel. When I called him, he answered with a calm voice. "Dad, don't make this difficult. You canceled my credit cards. I protected you," he said. "You're becoming irresponsible." "I'm irresponsible. You're alone. You forget things. You argue about money. Vanessa and I think it's safer if we manage everything. You had no right. I'm your son." Daniel replied one day, "All of this will belong to me anyway." That sentence changed everything. For years I had believed that Daniel cared about me. But now I understood that he was looking at my home, my company, and my savings as an inheritance waiting to be collected. He didn't see me as his father. He saw me as an obstacle standing between him and my money. I didn't argue. I simply said, "All right, Daniel. If you believe you control everything, we'll see." Then I hung up. The next morning I called my attorney, Margaret. She had represented me for more than 20 years and knew every detail of my financial life. "Robert," she said, "after hearing what happened, Daniel has access to only the accounts you authorized.
He cannot control your estate."
"Your business holdings or your investment trust." I smiled. That's what I thought. You see, Daniel knew about the house, the checking account, and the credit cards. But he didn't know about the private investment company I had created years earlier. He didn't know that most of my assets were held in a family trust that I controlled as the primary trustee. He also didn't know that I had never planned to leave everything to him automatically. My wife and I had created the trust with one important condition. Our inheritance would go only to family members who treated us with dignity and responsibility. Margaret arranged a meeting with my accountant and financial advisor. We reviewed every account and removed Daniel's access. Then I made another decision. I sold my construction company. The company was worth far more than Daniel believed. He assumed I had retired with only a modest amount of savings. But the sale brought in several $1,000,000. I placed the money into investments managed by professionals. I also purchased a smaller home near the coast, where I had always wanted to live. Daniel found out about the sale through an old employee. He called me immediately, "Dad, what did you do? I sold the company." "You can't sell it, that was supposed to be mine." "No," I said. "It was mine, I built it. You promised me I would take over someday. I promised you an opportunity." I replied, "You chose not to work there." He became angry. "You're destroying my future." "No, Daniel, you're responsible for your own future." A week later, Daniel and Vanessa came to my house. They expected me to apologize and restore their access. Instead, they found moving boxes. "Where are you going?" Vanessa asked. "I bought another home. What about this house?" Daniel demanded, "I'm selling it. You can't sell it without talking to me. I don't need your permission." Daniel stepped closer. "Dad, you don't understand. We have plans. We expected to move here after you retired. You made plans for property you didn't own." I said. Vanessa tried to sound calm. "Robert, we only wanted to help you." "Then why did you cancel my credit cards?" Neither of them answered. "Why did you tell the bank I was incapable?" I continued. Daniel looked away. "We thought you needed supervision." "No," I said. "You thought you needed control." That was the last serious conversation we had for several months. Then Daniel received a letter from Margaret. The letter explained that he had been removed from every financial account connected to me. It also informed him that the family trust had been revised. He called me again, but this time his voice was nervous. "Dad, what does this mean?" "It means you no longer have authority over my money." "But I'm your only child." "Yes." "Then who controls the trust?" "I do, and after you." "That depends on the choices you make." He was silent. I continued. "The trust will support people and organizations that show responsibility, kindness, and respect. Your inheritance is no longer guaranteed. You can't do that. I already did." For the first time, Daniel understood that he had made a terrible mistake. He had believed that canceling my credit cards would make me dependent on him. Instead, his actions had forced me to examine the truth. He had tried to control a few pieces of my financial life, while knowing nothing about the larger picture. Months later, Daniel came to visit me at my new home. He arrived alone. He looked tired. "Dad," he said quietly. "I'm sorry I invited him inside." He apologized for the credit cards, the false report, and the way he had spoken to me. He admitted that he had become obsessed with the idea that my money was already his. "I thought you owed me an inheritance." He said, "No parent owes a child an inheritance." I replied, "Parents owe their children love, guidance, and support, but what they build belongs to them." He nodded. "I understand now." I didn't immediately restore his inheritance. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. Forgiveness can begin with an apology, but trust must be rebuilt through actions. Daniel started visiting more often. He stopped asking about money. He helped me repair things around the house and listened when I talked about his mother. Slowly, our relationship began to change, but I kept control of my finances. The greatest lesson I learned was that money can reveal what people truly believe. Some people see wealth as a gift. Others see it as something they are entitled to take. My son canceled my credit cards because he thought those cards represented my power. He was wrong. My power came from the years I worked, the decisions I made, and the wisdom I gained. The money was never under his control, and when he finally learned who really controlled it, he understood something much more valuable. An inheritance is not a right. Respect is not something you can demand, and family should never be treated like a bank account. Today, I live peacefully near the ocean. I still speak with Daniel, but our relationship has boundaries. He knows that my money is mine, my decisions are mine, and my future is not something he can claim. The credit cards were replaced within a week, but the trust that was broken took much longer to rebuild, and that was the price my son had to pay when he tried to control the money without realizing who had truly earned it.